Hello, and welcome back to another weather news roundup. If you're anything like me, you might have been sitting outside, wondering where the summer has gone. Here in the UK, we've had a few days of sunshine and some glorious weather. But then, we've also had these massive storms rolling in, which bring with them torrential downpours, hail, thunder, and lightning. And they can sometimes be quite intense. Some parts of the UK have seen little of that though. And overall, our weather has remained much drier than usual. But did July finally bring some change? Let's take a look, and we'll start, as ever, here in the UK and Ireland. And the UK actually saw its wettest day of July in a very long time, at least for some parts. On the 16th, a band of rain moved across the country, bringing with it some very heavy rain, hail, thunderstorms, and even a tornado. That was in Eldon Co, Durham. It was only very briefly a tornado, but there were some amazing pictures and videos of that. There was also flooding in parts of Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire in Scotland after very heavy rain, as well as some other spots across northern England, Wales, and southwest England. All in all, the rainfall over the course of July was a mixed bag. Some places saw over 100% of their average rainfall for the month. But on the flip side, some places didn't see any rain at all. Overall though, most of the UK averaged somewhere between 70 and 90% of their normal rainfall. So no real winners or losers, which is good news. In those few days of rain at the start of the month did bring the risk of flooding. Since then, things have become much drier once again. Now, in terms of temperatures, July was yet another month where the average temperature was higher than usual. The hottest day of the month was the 12th, when Aviemore in Scotland recorded 32.2. See, that's the highest ever recorded in Scotland. There were lots of other places across the UK that saw temperatures in excess of 30 degrees Celsius. And overall, July was one of the warmest on record for the UK as a whole. However, in terms of the national average temperature, it wasn't the warmest on record. That record was set back in 2022, when the average maximum temperature across the UK was almost 23 degrees Celsius. This July, the average maximum temperature across the UK was around 22 degrees Celsius. Still very warm, but not quite the record breaker. Despite the recent rainfall, there is still very little sign of drought conditions easing, according to experts. Even if August is wetter than usual, it won't do much to replenish groundwater levels because the ground is so hard. That's due to the persistent, dry weather we've seen in recent months. The hard ground means that even when it rains, the water runs off the surface rather than soaking into the ground. The Environment Agency says that it would take several months of sustained rainfall to bring the river and groundwater levels back to normal. And the same goes for the rest of the UK. Experts say that we need at least 2 or 3 months of rain to make up for the deficit. We had some at the start of the year, but that was pretty much it. So we're still waiting for that sustained period of rain. However, high pressure is likely to return soon, which will mean drier weather. But it does look like it will stay relatively warm. So maybe it's going to be another scorcher after all. But what does the data actually say? Well, let's take a look at this graph. This shows the percentage of average rainfall across the UK. And as you can see, the vast majority of the country is currently experiencing less than 70% of average rainfall. Parts of northeast England and southeast England are doing particularly badly, receiving less than 50% of their average rainfall. If we look back over the last month, we can see that the recent rain hasn't really helped much. The only area that saw any improvement was in southwest England. So whilst it's nice to get some rain, it doesn't really help much in the grand scheme of things. In terms of temperatures, things look pretty similar. Most of the UK is experiencing above average temperatures, but it's not quite as widespread as the drier than average weather. The Climate Change Committee has warned that the prolonged dry weather is having an impact on ecosystems and wildlife. They say that there has been widespread damage to plant and wildlife habitats, and some species are struggling. The Environment Agency says that we are likely to see more frequent and severe droughts in the future. They are urging people to take action to prepare for the next drought, such as checking their home for leaks and watering their garden wisely. Speaking of the recent rainfall, there are suggestions that August could be wetter than average. However, it's still too early to say for sure, and you should always take these predictions with a grain of salt. Now, let us move over to Ireland, and the good news is that many parts of Ireland are set to enjoy drier and warmer weather as August begins. According to Met Éireann, temperatures will range from about 17 to 22 degrees Celsius, with increasing sunshine and lower rainfall thanks to an incoming Azores high-pressure system. The East Coast can expect occasional drizzle and cloud cover for the first half of the week. However, this will ease midweek, with the unsettled conditions mainly confined to the northwest, leading to a more stable week overall with plenty of dry weather for most. Now, before we move on to the rest of the world, if you're enjoying this video, please do support us. It helps us to keep making these videos every week, and it only takes a few seconds. Let's move on to our European weather roundup. And we'll start in Turkey, where it's really hot right now. It's been scorching across the country for the past few weeks, and today was the hottest day on record for Turkey. A village called Salopi in the southeastern province of Sırnak recorded a record-breaking 50.5 degrees Celsius. That's the highest temperature ever recorded in the country. It's been so hot and dry that there are wildfires raging across the country. More than 70 people have died and tens of thousands have had to evacuate. The wildfires are some of the worst in the country's history. Thankfully, a cooling northerly front is expected to bring rapid drops in temperature of more than 15 degrees Celsius and some much-needed rainfall to help the firefighting efforts. It's been similarly hot in parts of Southeast Europe. In Albania, temperatures have topped 40 degrees Celsius. And in Belgrade, Serbia, the temperature reached 42 degrees Celsius. And in Bulgaria, the temperature also reached 40 degrees Celsius. In response to the extreme heat, many schools have closed and authorities are urging people to stay indoors. Meanwhile, in the UK, many people have been taking advantage of the sunshine and heading to the beach. But lifeguards are warning people to be careful in the water. There have already been several incidents of people getting into trouble in the sea. The RNLI has urged people to never swim alone and to be aware of the risks of getting into cold water. And now, let's take a look at the eastern U.S. Over 185 million people are under heat advisories in 15 different states. The heat index values range from 105 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Some areas will even see values as high as 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Cities like Tampa, Memphis, and Raleigh are just a few examples of cities affected by this heat wave. Overnight temperatures will only drop into the 70s and 80s, meaning little relief from the heat. The situation is expected to persist into midweek until a cold front arrives and brings cooler air to the region. Now, let's take a look at Australia. And some parts of Australia saw its wettest day of the year so far on Saturday. A powerful cold front deluged all states, bringing with it some very heavy rain, snow, and strong winds. Some places received up to 72 millimeters of rain in just 6 hours. Western Australia's capital city, Perth, recorded 40 millimeters of rain, plus hail and lightning. Winds gusted to nearly 100 kilometers per hour. Coastal waves also climbed to 8 meters. Meanwhile, the alpine regions of Southeast Australia were hit with fresh snowfalls, but unfortunately, the rainfall hasn't done much to ease drought conditions. Areas in South Australia, NSW, and Victoria are still experiencing abnormally dry conditions. And now, let's move over to South America. The weekend deluge of rain in South Australia has come as a surprise to many. The deluge came after warnings that the state was set for a mild winter. On Sunday, areas around Adelaide and Mount Lofty recorded 50 to 112 millimeters of rain. This has raised concerns about potential flooding as the saturated grounds struggle to absorb further water. Meteorologists are baffled by the heavy rainfall, which contradicts earlier forecasts predicting a mild winter with below-average rainfall. For the rest of the week, temperatures are expected to be 2 to 8 degrees Celsius below average. But this cooling trend may be overshadowed by the continued wet weather. While the recent rainfall is helpful, more sustained periods of rain are still needed to alleviate the ongoing drought conditions. That's all for this week's Weather News Roundup. Please do leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. I love reading your comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get our latest videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.